attacking other people's dogs. I do everything I can to be a good neighbor to the people that are around me. I spent 10 years in the Navy, and the marijuana that I grow is for my personal use. It's not for a bunch of people from Nevada to come and do what they want with. It's something that helps me out a lot. I don't use any hazardous fertilizers, not something that I'm going to eat or smoke or apply as a cream or any of the other things you can do with marijuana. I can guarantee that the water that I use, I don't use near as much as some of the people that are growing grass. I'm sorry that my fences are ugly, but, I'm not made of money. I really do everything that I can to put forth a good, example. I don't know if you want to call it that. I can't stand people who try to trample on other people's rights. I'm doing everything I can to abide by the law. I've heard a figure of these people that are growing 99 plants are harvesting 300 pounds. I would really, really like to see that happen in my neighborhood. I don't think that you can put a general number on things. Mr. Nixon said, if someone is obeying the law and not bothering the neighborhood, fine. If somebody thinks I'm bothering the neighborhood in a way, please address me and I will change it. I didn't move to Lake Forest to be a blight on the community. I do firmly believe in some sort of regulation. I don't think that people should just do whatever they want. But I think there needs to be, a lot of research into the actual facts and not the opinions. I've never seen a study that says that growing marijuana brings the property value down of the people around me. I would see, I'd love to see it. My biggest thing is I try my best to follow the laws. I don't like it when people spread misinformation. I would be happy to address any concerns. And, that's really all I have to say is I don't think it's good to generalize things, and I think that people should be punished if their dogs are outside of the property. Call animal control. I don't think that the growing of the marijuana is the actual problem. I think that the people that are coming to steal the marijuana, that is the problem. I don't think that it's right to take away a medicine or take away my ability to grow something that is a medicine for me because of, what ifs. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
My name is Terry Lyons. I live up in Lake Forest. I've been there for 30 plus years. Raised my family there. Helped raise my grandkids there. We never had to deal with the medical marijuana issue up there. I don't have a problem if people have issues where they need the marijuana, but think they should have to go to the drugstore or somewhere to get it, just like I go to get my medication at a drugstore. And to grow that stuff in a residential area where people are trying to raise their kids, their grandkids, and retire there, which I am retired now, and I will probably die there in that same area. I'd like to comment on the last gentleman that said he served in the Navy for 10 years. I'd like to thank him for his service, but I don't think that allows him the opportunity to come in there and start growing. And with the issues of the odor, I probably live about 2 blocks away from where he's actually growing. And the smell of that stuff at my place last night, as we're out there trying to cook our steaks on a barbecue, was terrible. And I don't think anybody in here would like it if they were raising a family and I pulled in there and started operating a sewer system that they absolutely couldn't stand and tell them, well, you know what, I've got rights to do this. You know, everybody has rights. And I think it's really wrong to move into a residential area, and I don't know how many plants these people think they need, but the smell of that stuff up there is just horrendous. And there's going to be crime up there. We've all seen it in cities and areas where people are growing that stuff. People are going to try to get in there to get it. They're going to up the ante and put dogs, vicious dogs in there. We've already seen that up there. You know, it could get to where there's issues with guns up in there, with our children riding up down the streets with their bicycles and stuff, as well as, you know, coming through the house in the middle of the night when people are trying to protect their crops. That area was never intended to grow commercially, and I don't, like I said, I don't know what it actually takes for one person to grow enough marijuana to sustain what they need, but I don't believe that that's what's happening. I think it's being commercially grown, and it's going to tax our water system, and I really think something needs to be done about it. I sympathize with the people that have put up with this stuff for years. Some of the people that have already spoken said they're from Janesville area, and they've had to deal with this thing, with people getting up in their face and everything. I always hear, what about my rights to grow this stuff? What about my rights to smoke this stuff? Well, what about the rights of the people that don't want to be around the smell of all that? You know, I really think that something needs to be done. They need to move to a different area. It needs to be in a commercial area where they can grow, not in a residential area.
My name is Terry Dude, and my husband was referred to on the paper today, front page, and so I think I would be amiss if I didn't follow up with his thoughts, since he can't be here. He's a school teacher. We are very concerned about our daughter who gets dropped off by the bus a block up from Ian's house, concerned about Ian's dogs, concerned that Ian is not the only one who is going to bring agriculture into a neighborhood. I am a homeowner at Lake Forest. I also own a home over here on Cottage Street. When the Ale House opened, I got a letter asking if I was okay that alcohol was being served 2 blocks away from my home that's a rental. There are rights in this state that shouldn't be imposed on those who don't invite it. And by that I mean, if Ian wants to grow marijuana for his personal use, my friend Dennis wants to do that for his personal use, I'm fine with that. But 100 plants on 6 lots is a bit much for me. It's a bit much for my neighbors. We are zoned residential, not agriculture, as you all well know. And thank you, Bob Kyle, for bringing this to the board and allowing it to be exposed to the public. Because, I'm sorry, Ian, but it is a concern. And if you had children, you probably wouldn't want them walking by your house with pit bulls that chase other children. And I know that that's true because I've seen it and I've heard about it from other neighbors. I respect what they do, but we are in turn asking for your respect. And with lots being so close together, I don't think that that could be met. So with that said, we would appreciate your vote to put an ordinance into effect so that we can have a little bit of say about what goes on in our neighborhood. Also, one last thing. I do have a really nice lawn at my house. 3 days a week, 15 minutes a day. I don't think you can do that with your marijuana plants. We are, thank you. We are on a well. We don't have endless water supply like most of California. So your consideration of our water, our health, our air quality, our home, property values, our children, our animals, our safety would be greatly appreciated.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. See if you had another follow-up legal point, if I may. Excuse me, Mr. Foster. Just a moment. Thank you. Some discussion today about rights. Lots of rights we enjoy as citizens. Some have argued in the courts since the passage of Prop 215 and the Senate Bill 420 that individuals now possess a right to use and cultivate. In City of Riverside versus Inland Empire, our California Supreme Court, and again re-enunciated in Morale versus City of Live Oak, the case that was set forth in your package there. The court pretty well dismissed the proposition that that initiative and that legislative enactment conferred on individuals some sort of broad constitutional right to cultivate marijuana and or use marijuana. They said that's not a right. And so that needed to be said, I think, because I think sometimes perhaps it's viewed, and that was the foothold on which the Morale decision was made, which then basically legitimized the use of zoning to regulate that activity. So, for whatever it's worth.
Good afternoon. My name is Darrell Foster. I've been a resident of Lake Forest for 10 years now. And I'd like to thank the board for scheduling this meeting today. I'm pretty humbled by the kinds of reports and stories you've heard so far. Ronnie Chandler's story was compelling. Dr. James Snell, who knows more about marijuana than James Snell in this building? So many of you know pretty much what Lake Forest is like. Lots of homes, lots of trees. Those trees burn. Those trees burn if there's a fire, whether it's caused by an accident or some other activity that causes a fire or an explosion. So we have a water board, water crew, fire board, firemen, and a neighborhood watch organization, which I helped organize starting in April. Things are going along smoothly thanks to Mr. Pyle. That has been accelerated quite a bit. But a couple of months ago, I started getting questions. Darrell, what is this going? What are all these plywood fences? Who's buying all these houses? What are they doing? What are we going to do about it? Darrell, what are you going to do about it? Well, it's a slow process. So 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting. 3 of us from Lake Forest spoke, and 2 of the 3 of us are here today. I guess that I share the same kind of concerns that everyone else does. I don't know where property value lies in the order of priorities. That's certainly one of them. Dogs running around, children not having the same freedom that they used to have. I remember the old incidences that used to have about somebody having a swimming pool and a child walks into the pool, steps into the pool and drowns. And I believe that was called an attractive nuisance, and a lot of lawsuits were won after a child drowned. I'm thinking that if you have an attractive nuisance at Lake Forest and some thieves come in and shoot the place up and steal your property, maybe that's the property resident, not necessarily the owner, because we don't know how many of these places that grow marijuana are owned by the person living there or by other people. Subsequent to the last meeting, I received some documents that were forwarded to the board, most of them anyway. California case law indicates that a lot of counties are giving leeway to making their own decisions about. Anybody could disagree with that. Direct that at me if you wish, or everyone else. This document that was forwarded. Second one, San Diego County Office of District Attorney, Medical Marijuana, California case law summary. Again, I think gives the board some leeway that you may not have considered in the past. Frankly, I can imagine how many hours a week you gentlemen spend between meetings reading documents. So when you get a packet like that, it's not without some regret that I forward that. There's another document called Guidelines for Security and Non-Diversion of Marijuana Grown in California Use. It speaks to this topic. There's two more that I didn't forward. One is the Lake Forest Water Company bylaws, and it seems like we have some violations there. Didn't give that to you. You have enough. And then the Lake Forest CCNRs, which there are some violations there. Probably the most important to anybody that works in the state of California and works at one of the prisons here is notice a change of regulations, institution posting and certification required. Electronic drug detection equipment for officers as they come to work. This is intended to keep people from bringing marijuana into the prison, but also the end result is that it influences any officers coming in with spores or things on their clothes. I don't believe there's a state prison officer or middle management that wants to be in this discussion. That's my impression. But this nevertheless was given to me and to look at. And there are some could be some significant ramifications, significant costs if officers who had spores on their clothes, highly sensitive detection equipment, would cause them not to be doing their job. Most of us know that there aren't enough correctional officers in California at this present time. I'm not an expert on any of this or any other topic, but I really believe that I'm trusting the Board of Supervisors to make the right decision, and I'm going to steal a term from somebody who I admire very much, and that is whatever you come up with, I hope that it is something that is enforceable. Thank you.
Dean Grouden, Sheriff Coroner. I appreciate the people on the line letting me take cuts. I have a meeting at 3 o'clock I need to make. But first of all, I appreciate the board hosting this hearing. It's important to hear from both sides in considering this important issue. And I appreciate County Council's description of the law as it stands today. And you can tell that it's very confusing. It's very difficult for our people to enforce. And there are a lot of misconceptions in the public about what is and what is not unlawful. And you can tell by the description that it becomes really important, or really difficult for us to take any enforcement action at times. We do go out on a regular basis when we get reports of marijuana cultivation sites. We go out and we ensure compliance currently with Prop 215. The hard part with that is we know sometimes, based on what we see, that they are likely not grow sites that are just supplying the occupants for their medical need. You know, there are a number of plants growing, but the hard part is proving it. How do you prove that it's not for their medical need? Now, like County Council said, there are a lot of ordinances around the state. There are some, I know Fresno County just adopted one that says no cultivation at all. And I don't think that's the right answer for us. I think there are some, I've talked extensively with a number of the sheriffs around the state, and Tehama County has an ordinance that was recently modified that allows for cultivation. It has a maximum plant count. It has property setbacks, has setbacks from schools, parks, child care centers. And it also goes from, the enforcement of it moves from enforcement as a nuisance, and ultimately it can be charged as a misdemeanor if the people remain out of compliance. So I think it might be one for us to consider and look at. Now, the most important things for me in the end is it has to be clear. It has to be clear so that the people who have the medical need or who are authorized under the law to use it for a medical purpose understand what the rules are so they can comply with them. That they protect the quality of life for our citizens and our neighborhoods. Stop these commercial grow operations. These large-scale grow operations like I described earlier that are hard for us to show that they're criminal in nature, but we believe that they are. We don't want our county to become a safe haven for these criminal cultivation operations. And it has to be enforceable. We have to have a plan for enforcement. But again, the most important thing up front is making sure that the rules are clear and understood. And then doing what you're doing today, making sure that we consider the input. We're all elected officials, making sure that we're considering the input of our good citizens when we make these important decisions. So, unless there are any questions for me, thank you.
Dean, do you guys expect the growth?
We do. The difficulty, most of these people, they allow us, we knock on their door, they allow us in, they show us the recommendations, we inspect their site. And most of them, like I said, are in compliance with Prop 215.
So if there's a problem such as we're hearing tonight, you guys visit these people several times or
We've visited a number of these places multiple times, but the hard part is we get multiple calls. We're not going to harass people. If we've been there in the recent past, we're probably not going to go right back out there again. But if we get complaints indicative of sales information consistent with sales, we'll try to go out and investigate those further. But it's really difficult. Right now our drug enforcement unit really was just recently shut down, but I have 3 detectives that work all crimes, and they still are doing drug enforcement. It's the same 3 detectives that were doing it when we still had a task force. The only thing that doesn't exist is that partnership between us and the Susanville Police Department. But our ability to investigate those is limited. We used to have 3 people that did drugs alone in addition to our other 3 detectives. So it's difficult, but we do what we can.
do you know how many medical marijuana licenses have been distributed in Lansing County?
I don't.
You have a question? So if the 215 card holders had a place, like, if you get a prescription for a painkiller, they could go to Walgreens and fill the prescription. I mean, it's kind of like not having a drugstore and let people make their own painkillers. It's sort of, if you put it in that perspective. So what I'm saying is if you had a dispensary where legitimate people with a prescription could go buy legitimate medical marijuana, it's regulated, it's safe, then why do you feel you need to have anybody grow their own? Wouldn't that be a way to solve the issue of the people? I mean, let's face it, it's legal. Just like it's legal to get a prescription for penicillin or a vitamin, it's legal. But there's no regulated, legitimate place to go obtain the medicine. So people are growing it themselves. The problem, don't you think, if you limit it, and then it's the burden is on you guys to police it. You say, okay, you go attend class, the amount of money it would cost to actually go to all these, 150 people, or 200 or 300 people. But whereas if they could go to a registered, legitimate place to obtain safe medical marijuana, then what is the need to have everybody grow?
Well, I think they're going to grow it no matter what. The difficulty is who's going to regulate the dispensary, who's going to tell you, who's going to regulate how they're growing the marijuana, and that's difficult. That's real difficult. And I think if you set an ordinance with the input from everybody, most of the people that grow it for medical purposes are going to comply. Most of them are. It's the ones that are already those outliers that are really responsible for most of the concern here today, those people aren't they're going to be the ones that we're going to have to take enforcement action against. I think most people would come into compliance.
But some of the people that were here that actually talked, that do use it, said they wish there was a place they could go obtain it, like safe, instead of having that.
Yeah, and right now I'm not a fan of dispensaries, personally. I think eventually it's going to get legalized. The voters at some point in California are going to legalize marijuana, and at that point I think it would be best for some kind of government regulation, because that's one of the biggest concerns too right now is what's in the marijuana. You don't know. People are adding chemicals, they've increased the potency and so on. I don't know. That's a tough one. That's down the road a little ways. That's outside of really this, I think. But
well, can you share with, because I don't, I'm asking questions I don't know. I'm not ashamed to say I don't know. So what are some of the problems? Why do you not favor a place where people can go buy it, like, legitimately? What are the kind of problems associated with dispensaries?
well, I'm not an expert on this subject. I mean, we had some startup dispensaries. The concern I have is who's going to regulate what's in that marijuana. If you as a board of supervisors endorse or support some kind of a storefront, then who's going to monitor what's in that marijuana on your behalf? I mean, that's one concern I have just right up front. But I think
so the nature of the dispensary, it's not regulated by the state, but again, I don't know.
No, Lake County, some other counties, there are dispensaries all over the place.
So they're just sort of like.
They pop up as a storefront. And
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. That's beyond the law. The California Supreme Court says there's no right to have a dispensary. The medical marijuana program, the Compassionate Use Act, didn't approve essentially distribution of marijuana by someone who is not a primary caregiver or qualified victim. That's the narrow.
The only legal way.
But it is happening.
Yeah.
It is happening.
and that's
So
In Los Angeles,
you have
I think
to,
there were 600 of them.
you have to, the only way to legally do it is to grow your own marijuana.
or in a cooperative. We have quite a few of those where people partner in growing marijuana, where one person might be care for it one day and another person the next, and they're growing for a number of people that have doctor's recommendations. That's a couple other things. It's a doctor's recommendation. It's not a prescription. The 99 plant count is a filing or guideline that the federal government has used in the past. For them to consider federal prosecution on a marijuana cultivation case, you have to have 99 plants or more. The federal government at this point has really stepped out. A while ago, Mendocino County has started a local program where people would register their gardens and they'd get a tag that they would put on each plant, and they were issued by the sheriff of Mendocino County. I appreciate what he did, really. He was real proactive in trying to deal with this issue. Well, the federal government came in with warrants and kicked the doors down in some of those places and were cutting those plants down that had the sheriff's tag on them. So it's really been up and down. So the feds went from that extreme to now where they're really not prosecuting much at all. They're staying out of the medical marijuana argument for the most part. So we get a lot of calls related to this issue, a lot. And we brought this up a couple months ago at a board meeting, Maury Anderson did, and we discussed it real lightly there, but there wasn't any real interest. So, I'm glad that there's some interest now because we do need to talk about this subject. So thank you.
Because under the federal sentencing guidelines, you didn't really see, as a federal prosecutor, any significant federal prison sentence, frankly, for any lesser number of plants, and so therefore they didn't want to spend the effort.
That gives a good answer, but to go to the heart of the question that we're dealing with is, So the 99 wasn't anything that was, as a number, set in any sort of a maximum statute. So there's nothing that precludes us from a regulatory point of view, land use basis in terms of being able to put a different cap. Our interest isn't dependent on